I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Ellen Koronet to talk about her article in the May-June issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Ellen, hi, thanks for being here with me.
Hi, happy to be here.
Well, before we dive into this really interesting topic that you wrote about, tell our viewers a little bit about you.
All right, so I am a social scientist. I've been doing applied anthropology in the business world for 40 years, and my business itself is just hitting the 20-year mark. So sometimes I forget to celebrate that. And at this point, I both work for corporations to do focus groups and surveys and big studies. But I also create lead magnet quizzes and brand personality assessments for businesses of all sizes. And that's where I get really excited.
And that's what leads us to your topic today, which is echolating introversion. Am I saying that word right? It is echolating. I'm not.
So think of it like the dolphins, or whales.
Yeah,
Echolocation.
but it's not spelled that way.
Echolocate, sure.
Not in your article, it's not.
Oh, maybe I go.
I don't think it
Echolocation.
is. I don't think it is. I think it's
Okay.
echolating.
Okay, good. Wow, we created a really new
That
word.
is
I
so
thought I was just
funny.
using one.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look real quick because see if I'm making this up. That's why these things. No,
Echolocation.
it's right, Ellen. It's right. I've been doing it wrong. And I looked it up and I know what echolocating is. I'm thinking,
Echo,
well, she must be
echo,
playing on
what
that
did you call?
word,
All right.
echolocating. I said, she must
Okay,
be
so
playing on
now
that
this is
word.
a linguistics
It's a
discussion. Here
linguistic
we
thing.
go. Let's
So
do
your
it.
title is correct. I don't know that the graphic is correct. I'll have to look at that because it wouldn't be that
All right.
obvious if it left
It's
off
all good.
the
I
words.
love to make up words and we can use them however we need to. It's all good.
Okay. Well, okay. Echolating introversion is exactly what it means, right? And so for the past few months, you've been conducting social research on redefining introversion and extroversion. So I'd like to start with sharing what inspired you to actually start this process and start this project.
Wow. So I've created many quizzes and assessments over the last 10 years when I've really been diving into this technique and trying to make it my own. I've been, pulling it above the quick and easy. There are a number of apps that you can easily just grab and people think, oh, it's easy to make a quiz, and they don't see people where they are. And so many of my clients, when they do come in and we do this deep dive and we figure out what their brand personality is, and we're going to get it out there to show their brilliance, and communicate with people before they ever walk in the door, they often ask me to put introversion and extroversion in as a measure. And I've always chafed at that. I've always fought it because the Myers-Briggs construct is the one that's most well known, that has really helped people to label themselves. And it's completely oppositional. You can't find yourself anywhere on that scale if you're trying to go either or, right? And so I've always felt like, no, let's try to find another way to get at those qualities. And so I've been studying it for a while.
You have.
And steering my clients away from the labels. And then finally, I forget what triggered it, but I finally sat down and said, this is what I really need to do a full-blown study on to see if I can redefine not only introversion and extroversion, that's the easiest one, but anything that puts us from one side to the other in any kind of conversation or any kind of an assessment or quiz or survey, any kind of psychographic survey. Psychographics are the attitudinal statements that we use in social science to help segment people into different like-minded groups. And so I'd never want to use something that's going to force someone to be in a box that they don't really feel comfortable in. So that's what started it.
Okay. Well, you know, I've talked about this a bit, and you've also spoken at some of my groups about this whole idea of introversion and extroversion. And you know my story about labeling myself based on Myers-Briggs an extrovert for the first, I guess I probably took the test in my mid 30s. And it wasn't until I was in my probably late 50s that I took it again and I came out an introvert. And I'm like, no, 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 I can't be an introvert for the exact reasons that you get chafed by it because it's got negative connotations to me. Introverts are shy and they don't I can stand on stage and talk to a million people if they're in the room, and so I started to realize that I had actually answered the Myers-Briggs questions based on kind of like my behavior, but
Mm-hmm.
not my desire, if that makes sense. And so what I love so much about what you're doing is that you've tapped into that, where we can float. We're not so boxed into anything, because I've met so many introverts who are not proud of being an introvert, and so
Mm-hmm.
many extroverts who are so proud of being an extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I'm an extrovert. Oh, I'm an introvert. It's just by the label itself,
Exactly.
it's just that body language even. So while you said you wrote that your sample is relatively small, mainly of one particular demographic, but that you said this was an intriguing study full of all kinds of unexpected insights. And you wrote about four insights, and I'd like to touch on each one a little bit, but I also want everybody to go read the article to get all the more depth of what Ellen is writing about. So the first is that the first key insight is the main measures of introversion and extroversion are nuanced. What did you find about that?
Um, okay, so to build the construct and really understand how introverted and extroverted everyone is, I did a lot of research and I pulled out all the measures that Myers-Briggs uses, that there's an international protocol of, personality typing, attitudes. I pulled all those. I did a bunch of research using Chat GPT. I did, and I played with the way I asked my probes and I kept going deeper. So I would ask, what's the opposite of this? What's the complement of this? And then I would take those words and do the same thing until I got down to the measures that I thought were most representative of what everyone agrees the Jungian definition of introvert versus extrovert. Versus, notice the verses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by it being nuanced is that I added other measures in so I could see if anything else correlates. And that's where the excitement starts, because there's all kinds of little surprises that I didn't expect. And also it's nuanced in that it's not one thing all the time. You can be in different situations and be, traditionally extroverted, and you can be in other situations and be completely introverted.
So it comes down to really the different ways that we live our life, and how we be in different aspects, or like a social situation versus a home situation, or different types of social situations. Even it's probably that nuanced, isn't it? It's not just social or not social. It's yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of
Without
the things we could talk about for 5 days, I know.
right. Well, without giving away too much of what's in the article,
Yeah.
and maybe another question you're about to ask me in a minute, but the research framework is called Jobs to be Done. And that whole thing, it's like a fascinating topic. It started with an organizational psychologist, a really well-known guy. He's no longer here. And he had done a study with McDonald's, and he learned that people hire a milkshake in the morning drive for certain reasons. And so that's where, when they really understood the reasons people hire a milkshake for the job to be done in the morning, which is that satisfying sense of, drinking something that you don't have to use your hands for and so on. And you're not hungry at 10 o'clock when you get to work, in the mid-morning break. Then they were able to sell more milkshakes because they understood what the milkshake was doing.
Mm.
So that's what I've applied here, is the inner introvert and the inner extrovert each have a job to be done, and you hire them at certain times for certain situations.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of the most fascinating things I found in your study is that, we're pulling them in when we need them. And hiring is an excellent way to use that, I think. And so it also says we're kind of in charge, right?
We're kind of what?
In charge.
In charge, yes.
We are in
You
charge.
do.
Yeah.
You have more control than you realize, yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, the second key insight, introversion and extroversion are a yes and proposition. What do you mean by that?
So it's when we started this conversation, I used the word versus.
Mhm.
Um, in improv, there's a wonderful construct that's actually made its way into the whole industry of design thinking, which is where companies learn how to innovate better by getting people to think differently and create differently in groups. And they've completely co-opted the idea of yes and, which came from improv, which is where, if two people or three people or four people are doing a little skit on a stage and somebody throws something out just random, uh, instead of saying, oh no, I don't like that idea, so sort of the no, but you have to say, yes, let's accept that. That's a great place to start. And let me add to it. So you're always adding to whatever the thing is instead of opposing it. And that has made its way into the way we think in research, the way we think in creative design thinking. And it totally applies to any of these constructs besides introvert and extrovert. There's a whole lot of other, what used to be dichotomies that I'm out to make them more compatible, where you can flow from one to the other and you can embrace both in different situations. So it's a yes and proposition rather than a no but or an either or.
And isn't that a great way to tap into additional creativity? I mean, to always be in that questioning, no matter what you're doing, to be in that question of yes and or what else, or
Yes.
instead of just having the wall come up and stop everything.
Yes. I mean, I think it's the remedy that we need for what's happening in the world today, because you hear something you don't agree with. And if you can find some nugget of something to build on in that, you're going to have a much richer conversation
Yeah.
with yourself and with the other person.
So true. So true. It requires some skills that need to be developed as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Third insight, contrary to popular opinion, we are not mostly ambiverted. How did you arrive at that conclusion?
So back in the 1950s, when Jung came up with this whole concept, he's the one who came up with introvert and extrovert. And right from the beginning, and ever since then, all psychologists agree that most people are not extremely introverted and they're not extremely extroverted. They're a little bit of both, or they're sometimes introverted and sometimes extroverted. So they just label everybody as ambivert. So I went, as I was doing my research, I'm a good researcher. I looked up ambivert. I looked up introvert. I looked up extrovert. There's tons of research on extroverts. There's quite a bit of research on introverts. There is nothing on ambiverts. It doesn't exist. It's not a construct. It's just a sort of, oh, you're not this, you're not that. So I call that a garbage can diagnosis, which in the medical field, you get fibromyalgia label if you're not this and you're not that. It's a garbage can diagnosis. So that's what ambivert is. And what I found, instead of, now I know my sample is, that initial sample is 168 people, which isn't too small. It's big enough that I can begin to see patterns, right?
Yeah.
And it's mostly women over 45, which is why I said it was a specific group. But what's wonderful is we are deep thinkers. Like we get this kind of thing really well, right? So what I've learned is that only a quarter of this population was not extremely introverted and not extremely extroverted. And I measured that by allowing both scales to go up and down independently. So what I expected was that the ambiverts, the ones who were not one or the other, would be low on both. But in fact, they're high on both. The average
Mhm.
score for them is really high. So I can completely define that group now. I can tell you what measures brought them up on extroversion and what measures brought them up on introversion and how they embrace both. And now we have a definition.
And that's very meaningful to me because I can see me being high on both of those. And you know why? I mean, we've had these conversations before. So anything else you want to say about that? Because that is just so fascinating. What do you do with that then? I mean, what do you do with that information?
It, what you do with that is that it takes away the stigma.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, oh, I'm an introvert, you can say, I'm a flexivert, which is the new term I've come up with for that. And a flexivert is someone who embraces, you know, their inner recharge, their need and their desire for quiet and peace and going inward and sorting themselves out, and they embrace the social butterfly business of really being wonderful to be around and wonderful to be with other people and energized by being with other people, so we don't have to divide ourselves up anymore.
Yeah, because you and I are sitting here having this amazing conversation, and we are both labeled introverts.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean,
yet we
I'm
feel,
somewhere. I can't trust my own results because I knew the measures too well.
yeah, right,
But
right.
I go in between introvert and flexivert. I'm like somewhere in there.
But I mean, in the old terms is what
Oh
I'm talking
yes.
about. Yeah.
No,
And
I was labeled an extrovert.
were you really? Okay. I
Mhm.
thought you had said something different because I see you as exhibiting more what I would call extroverted
I
behavior.
mean, but I was one of those that was completely borderline. Like I really couldn't
Yeah.
put myself one side or the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they just push you over to one side.
Okay, we got one more insight, and that is context matters. Even the most extroverted of extroverts tones it down in certain situations. Say more about that.
Yes. So that goes to the jobs to be done framework.
Mhm.
So if you're ready to face the biggest decision of your life, are you going to go jump up on a stage and shout to the world, I need to know what to do. What do you think? Right? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to sit down quietly, arrange yourself, consult with your loved ones, you know, pull yourself together into this inner world where you can really listen in, right? So that's your inner introvert, and you're going to hire your inner introvert when you need that space and that quality, and you'll hire your inner extrovert or your your whole extrovert when you're ready to go up on stage and or you want to make your career advance, or you want to throw a birthday party for your kids. I mean, there's all sorts of situations where you need to embrace that joy,
Mhm.
right? That comes with being with people and listening to people in a different way. And that's another interesting one about the nuance and the job to be done, is that in marketing research, a lot of times the research screener, which allows people to come into the focus group to talk about something that they know about in front of the client who's got a product to sell, we often have screened out introverts because we thought they're too quiet. They're not going to be able to do the group thing. But what's really happening now, I know from this research, is they are observing and putting the dots together, and then they'll come up with some amazing insight
Mhm.
once they've had a chance to really read the room and listen in, and they are deeper listeners. So that's when you would want to hire your inner introvert.
As you talk about that, I think of all the probably the missed potential that companies have had with people with labeling people and shy, can't do this, and not giving them a chance to actually flow into that, to hire their outer extrovert or whatever, or the too much person oh, they wouldn't be good at this because they're too out there. Well, maybe they would. I don't know, I'm very fascinated by it all. I'm very impressed with
Yeah,
how you
also
everything.
it should change our definition of leadership as well, because
Mm,
leaders
mm.
traditionally are thought of, the best leaders are more extroverted. And somebody who's high on both can't be a good leader. Well, now I can tell you that's baloney. Baloney.
Oh. So you did this quiz and that's how you got your research material. Is the quiz still happening and are you still looking for people to take the quiz?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I've redesigned it a little bit now that I have new measures that I found high correlations. So it can easily be taken. It's on my website. We can post it in here. And I'm often talking about it and posting it on LinkedIn. So yes, and I've started to get enough sample to begin to look at new insights as we
Cool.
go. So anybody and everybody can take it. And I even created an anonymous form for somebody from On Purpose Woman who asked, I would like to get this tool to people, but they don't want to give their name or their information or anything like that. So we have a
Mhm.
completely anonymous one out there as well.
Okay. Well, I will put the link to your quiz in the text of this video. And I invite everybody to go read the article, read Ellen's article on Purpose One magazine. And that link is also in the text of this video. And Ellen, how can our viewers find out more about you and your work?
Hop on my website, lnkcreative.com, watch for me on LinkedIn, set up a chat. Yeah, I'm out and about.
I'm also going to put in the quiz that you did for me. I would invite anybody watching, any woman watching this, to take the quiz that Ellen developed for me called Are You Ready for the Spotlight? Which is On Purpose Woman Global Community, is about helping women to be seen and heard in greater ways. And this is some great information on where you might be right now and where you might want to be in the future. So Ellen, as a wrap, I'd just like you to share some final thought with our viewers about what all this means to you and to us, or could mean to
Uh,
us, I guess.
yeah, I think that what I invite everyone to do is to always listen like an introvert and allow yourself to play like an extrovert. And if we can do that, if we can do that in every way, like not just with introversion and extroversion, but anytime you find yourself being labeled, think about what the compliment is and allow yourself to embrace both. Don't let people pigeonhole you anymore. We don't need that anymore.
I love that. I got a little chill up my spine when you said,
Yay.
listen like an introvert and play like an extrovert.
Yeah, I just came
Did
up
you
with that.
make
I
that
think,
up?
yeah, I just now. Thank you for the interview. That was great.
Wow,
I'm going to use that too.
that is brilliant. I absolutely love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I think it's a good thing for just all of us. It's a way to gauge like how we're doing, I think, in a way. And for me, I think I could see it as what's missing right now. I'm not playing.
Mm-hmm.
Or why do I feel so scattered? I'm not listening. I
Right.
can go in both directions. So thank
Right.
you. Thank you so much.
Right.
And again, all of the information for Ellen's quiz, for my quiz, for Ellen's website, and for the magazine article are in the text of this video. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Ellen, for sharing your curiosity, your wisdom, and your expertise with all of us. I'm just fascinated and can't wait to see what else you're going to uncover with this.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Always fun to talk with you.
Yes.
And I want to thank you all for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. And for more information on the On Purpose Women Global Community and magazine, please click on the links in this video as well. And be sure to check out Ellen's website and all that she's offering. And for more interviews with amazing women living their life on purpose, please check out our YouTube channel that's in the text of this video. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.